is bad, because I think that if you have, like when I go over to the Corcoran and I see that many people in one spot, one block in Washington, I think these people aren't all artists, or if they are, they're not all good artists.
Bureaucrats then.
And I mean, you're either there because the most beautiful girls at your school are in the art curriculum, which is one of the reasons that I got into art for 6 months when I was in college, and or something. But all those people can't be artists. And the other truth of the matter is, if you have it in you to be a great artist, you know, you can learn about how to mix oils and how to do colors and how to finish paintings and glaze them, or how to sculpt and do all this stuff, the technical part of it. But I mean, who could teach Picasso or Dali or things? I mean, people taught them technical
Well, that's what they
things,
say for a lot of people in art school. They have to dislearn what they learned.
A lot of
for 4
discipline,
years
a lot of development, I think, is so important. That's why you go to art school.
You go to a graduation from art school and you look at, okay, and here's your diploma and here's yours, and they're holding the hats on. You think, how many of those people walk off that stage and
not immediately
and
become
make
an
any
artist,
money
not
as-
immediately.
or ever?
Yeah, well, a lot of them give up after a couple of years, though.
Well, they should. Somebody
you
should have
don't
told them
just
going
learn
in. What do you
about-
think you're going to make any money
Yeah,
at this?
that's
You're
not the
fine.
point, though. Why do you,
When
when you have a child, you have them take piano lessons, or you have them take music,
But
you have them take
4 years
it's
of
to
college
develop
is
their
not piano
creative
lessons. Well, you
see, but-
abilities. It's not just so that
50,000
people
bucks.
will develop their ability to see things and
develop your ability is so
and
important.
know
Get
what.
them glasses.
But you see
They're
also-
a couple $100 up
I'm sorry,
there.
Linda.
No, it's just that's what it. It's
Would
not
you
just
send
about
your- would you
learning how to
pay
sculpt
to
or
send your
something. It's
child
about
to
learning
school?
how to see, and learning
think, and-
how to think.
I agree with you
and,
100%. I do, I
It's
do, I
solving
do.
problems a lot of times.
Well, with all these business
It's,
people
you
getting
know.
fired now, art is not such a bad thing anymore.
Hey, right, exactly. You're not making any money. I'm not
Yeah,
making
but
any
also,
money.
I mean,
It used to be you got
But
to
at
make
least I'm
a
an
living.
artist.
Well, a lot of people aren't making livings
Yeah.
anymore.
But
So I mean, it's becoming
Yeah,
a little
you're
bit
right.
more.
I know.
But just in response to your wonderment at the increase, though, a lot of that was just that during the 80s, the art market was hyperinflated, and you could have people sort of
Right.
looking at 1 or 2 removes and say, oh, gee, you become an artist, you go to New York,
Make a lot of money.
$30,000,
It's really
$40,000 a painting, you know, you'll marry a movie star,
Well,
your
is that
house
why
will be in
enrollment
town
is
and country.
increasing, or is it because there's a greater awareness of an aesthetic value that was missing for so long,
'Cause it
that
wasn't
was being
taught.
eclipsed by a materialistic value?
I think there's more
Maybe.
people.
Maybe
You just think it's more people.
I know.
Someone got to go.
I didn't think it
No, I
had
mean, I think
it-
that's a
it
good
had
point
a,
that she raises. I mean,
increase.
no, I
It is
think, I
true.
think that there is more and more a need for the type of response to, let's say, spiritual concerns or more metaphysical concerns that art brings. And I think there is sort of a reaction against the materialism of the society that I think people are more ripe to appreciate art. But I think what fueled the art market in the 80s was not the same. I mean, that was just sort of pure greed and Reaganomics, where art became a good investment, and it wasn't really so much about the art, but it was about, you know, just buying
but
something.
Is
there
that
that's
different from the past, Phyllis?
But there are also a number of art students who go to art school because it's now acceptable. A number of artists, the parents of artists, would not allow them to get their degree in art or go to art school. It wasn't what the parents had in mind. So they send them off to liberal art colleges or send them off to get professional degrees. And then ultimately, they would go to art school or they would become artists because that's what they had to do. That's what
Right.
that's how they had to express themselves. And now I think parents don't hold back the way they did. And they allow the young student who needs to be an artist, needs to go to art school to do so, and it's okay.
Yeah. Or how much of it is just a reflection of the 60s mentality? I mean, you know, the parent
Sure.
comes out, you know, do your own thing.
That's
and,
true,
and
yeah. Exactly, the parents now of college.
oh, wow,
That's
man,
pretty
my wife
frightening. Plus, he, you know, pops up in the paper and he goes, hey, Van Gogh, 53 million? Kid?
Go to school.
Yeah, look at you,
Learn art.
There was a future after your dad.
But, you know, that's,
But I think that is the attitude of the West. You go to art school, you want to make money immediately. That's not true in
No,
in the other part, you know. Like
other cultures,
you
art is
go
a
and
part of the-
paint and paint and paint and
That's what you
paint.
do.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what you do.
well, it's
You
more
don't sell
integrated
it,
into
you
the
just
Beautify
society.
the
You decorate the
environment.
village, you decorate your
Right.
environment,
Yeah.
you make everything beautiful, and it's not to make money. It's,
No.
it's like
But
the
that's
same
the nice
reason
thing about
musicians.
this new college, well, the Clinton administration is doing, the national service. Could you imagine if artists go to advertising firms or go to a place,
Or
some
paint
place,
murals in post offices
yeah,
like they
or
did
the
in the
mayor's
30s.
office and do all, put some art there, put some art in all these buildings, banks, you know. That is the nice thing about the national service. If they do that to artists, you know,
Like
you
the
can go
original
to.
I mean, art is
WNBA.
much more a part of the fabric of society, I think, in a lot of other cultures than the United States.
Oh,
And in
definitely.
fact, that's
it
one of the
is.
really nice things about this open studio that we're doing, too, is that it allows people to come and start to appreciate art outside of a commercial context, where you can
Right.
start seeing it in the studio, and it's not really as commercialized. You don't really maybe look at it as a materialistic object, but it's just you know, here's an artist and here's what he or she is doing, sort of out of the purity of soul that they have
Well,
for,
you know,
for
this
the
is
creative
really funny,
process.
but Arlington, we all love Arlington, but let's face it, it's a little community, a suburb of Washington, D.C., and often overlooked. If you go down the street to the Arlington Art Center, which is your place, you can see some absolutely great exhibits up there, and they turn them over fairly regularly, and they're well curated, and I mean...
Especially
and
now,
it,
we have
and
a
this
very
is
good
just,
show.
you know, I used to live right over there, and I'm thinking, this is my little quiet neighborhood, suddenly there's like a museum in the middle of it that's got great art in it.
Wonderful.
So it's
Yeah,
more accessible, and
great.
people can go see it, and again, it breaks down that barrier of when you go to a museum and there's the velvet rope and you're looking, it's like, do not touch, please do not touch, please do not touch. And of course, he doesn't want you to touch him
The
either.
Arlington Art Center also has a number of educational programs,
I know they,
as well as the WPA and the Rockville Arts Place. And I think that they not only are putting up art as something high and mighty, they want to reach the public. They want the public to come. I think almost every exhibition, at least at the Rockville Arts Place of the Arlington Art Center, has an artist evening where the artists will talk about their work and the public is invited. So there's a lot of education, a lot of community involvement.
community is a great word about art. If you imagine the artist, an artist as part of a community instead of often as Garrett doing these sort of discrete decorative things to throw out at the other community people. The idea of a community of artists and a community that has artists included, getting together and discussing things. Again, you know, you break down the barrier between the artist and the non-artist, and you find some way that you can contribute verbally or in some way interact with the artist himself, and it makes him more responsive, and it makes you more responsive to him. That's
It's
probably
kind
a
of
great
like
idea.
what Ellen was talking about earlier. Art just breaks through a lot of barriers, and I think, you know, as a civilization, as a society, we're starting to hit limitations, and most of the people are just, they don't know their ways around it. Art breaks through limitations. You can understand other cultures almost instantaneously
Right.
through the eyes, through the ears.
Yeah, where verbally you would
wonderful.
never get it.
Where verbally you can't do
Just
it.
one picture is worth zillions.
1,000 words.
Let's go back to this idea of community for just a second and elaborate on what we're talking about here today. The open studio idea. In these three organizations have become active participants in trying to pull in the community and in trying to give an outreach capability to the artist, to the community. Can you give us a little more background on this, Phyliss?
Well, just to pick up where you left off, I think one of the nice parts of this is that each arts organization is sponsoring the open studio within their geographic area, so that we're creating one large community for all three jurisdictions with a large catalog, which is inclusive. And then each individual arts organization will have a salon-style exhibition, which is small enough to be manageable, and which invites anybody in the whole community, but the artist will be from that geographic area. So that 1 week prior to the open studios, you can go in any day and see one work from each artist who will participate in open studios and get like a carrot, a taste of what you might see, and maybe make some selections that you might not have done. You could pick up a catalog when you're there, and the catalogs have the directions to every single artist studio. Almost every artist has a photograph, a black and white photograph in the catalog. There's a table of contents which is geographic and helps you make a logical tour. And at the end there's an index so that you could find the artist's name if you didn't know where they were. So I think that the inclusiveness of the open studio, there was no jurying, any artist could want to do it. And I have seen all the photographs that are going to be in the catalog, and there's some absolutely wonderful work. I can't wait to go. It's very exciting.
Well, listen, now that we've had our 1,000 words, I think somewhere we've got a video of this thing from last year. So I want to remind everybody
2
that
years ago?
for 2 years ago.
Dates
It was
dates
done
are-
by an
the dates are
award-winning
all- the dates are all wrong, but we'll come back and
cinematographer, wasn't it? Linda Lewitt.
anyway, we'll let Linda tell you the right dates. We'll come back. But right now, let's look at the video before things get violent again and somebody hits the anchovies. I know the lights are heating these things
Yeah.
up. That's really not good. Getting steamy.
Well, you can eat them cold, you can eat them hot.
You know, I'm ready for another anchovy.
Really? At the beginning of the show, you didn't want to eat it.
I'm telling
Yeah, I
you,
mean,
once you
it's-
start anchovy roll.
Take a walk on the creative side this spring and meet artists in their working environments. 3 area art organizations have joined forces to bring you the 12th annual Open Studio. Studios will be open in Virginia on April 6th and 7th, in Washington on April 13th and 14th, and in Maryland on April 20th and 21st. For more information, call the Arlington Art Center, the Washington Project for the Arts, or Rockville Art Place.
gosh, that was a good video. Did you do that?
Well, it's a real short video, but it's,
Well, it is
it's
pretty
okay.
short.
There's good artists in
It's one of the
there.
things I liked about it. It
There's
was really...
a few good artists. There's Judy Jashinsky painting in there, a little close-up. There's Susan Firestone. And there's Cheryl Castine and Charles Flickinger. All of those artists are going to have open studios this year, too. Even though it's an old video, still the artists are working away. So,
and the dates are all completely wrong,
the
I
dates
think,
are
'cause that's
wrong,
an
but
old-
just ignore that part.
Are you going to do another one this year?
I probably will not, sorry.
We'll be ready in time.
But that one was shown on the air. We actually have recycled that footage in the WPA's editing classes. So the students get a project to re-edit the PSAs with that same footage. So it kind of lives on. That
Sort of a classic then. Of
Yeah,
PSAs
you don't have to
produced.
Yeah,
reshoot it.
right.
You just get the students to
Re-edit
rewrite
the
all
piece.
this stuff.
But we
on
should,
it.
Yeah,
we should
that's
at least
true.
get the dates right. Does Phyliss
Yes.
have the dates for the open
System.
studio?
The correct dates for the open studio, the first open studio is in Washington, D.C., and it starts April 17th, Saturday. It's from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
I've heard this part
And
already.
Sunday, April 18th, also from 11 to 5. The following weekend is Virginia, Northern Virginia, and it's April 24th and 25th. And the last weekend is Maryland, and it's May 1st and May 2nd, all 11 to 5 p.m.
Great.
Great memory.
Remembered every one of them.
Not only that, but she coordinated this whole huge thing. So that's
Yeah.
pretty
That's right.
Spent a lot of
Bravo,
work on
the
this.
Trolleys.
Good job.
Everybody put on your thinking caps now. We're going to go back to...
We're going to get deep.
Concept.
Here. Deep. Now, you were talking about an
Art.
unjudged show.
Who is he?
What a wonderful concept. If art were something that we just attached magnets to and stuck them on our refrigerators at home and it cost 3 cents a piece or something, it really wouldn't matter what was good or bad. But it seems to me that we've lost any critical things by
Criteria.
which to judge art anymore.
Connoisseurship.
What's art? Connoisseurship, craftsmanship, any of the things that art was traditionally judged by when it exploded. And I mean, have we reached the point where everything I say is art, and plus everything that you say is art, and plus everything that he says is everything that everybody believes is art, or is
It's
something
just-
not art?
It's just a subjective thing, too. I mean, it really is. I mean, everybody's going to have different taste, but I really think when a really excellent piece of art is in front of anybody's eyes, you just can't deny the aesthetic value of that work.
So you mean so some
I
things?
just think
Okay,
that
some things are obviously art.
clearly beautiful work. You know, it's
Beautiful.
just that, or just grab you. You know, just speak to you.
No, I mean,
and,
I think-
you know,
I
they
think
just
one of the- I think-
communicate,
The gut
you know?
feeling,
I
yeah.
think
Gut
one of the
feeling.
aspects of art is that it's engaging the mind of the viewer and it's
That's
creating
right.
a dialogue
That's
where the piece of art is talking to the viewer is talking back to the piece of art. So that if you're looking at a shoe, you might not get into a real dialogue with a shoe. I mean, it might be a really nice shoe and you say, I want to buy that, but it's not telling you about the mysteries of the cosmos or, you know, social conditions, whereas there might be a piece of art that somehow is evoking a whole dialogue with you. So,
Yeah, let's look
I
at
mean,
some of the, you know, you can go to any museum, Hirshhorn or any place that have modern stuff, and you'll see some guy's got a black cube on a black base.
I
And
don't relate to that.
no, you don't relate to that, and I don't relate to that, but yet I will open Art in America tomorrow, and there will be a 15-page, incredibly dialectical type thing with long words that I don't understand, that it will explain why this is wonderful stuff and the whole idea behind it. And it seems that the text, that there's an
Becomes critical
art
to it,
philosophy
yeah.
has supplanted the piece, that the piece is only of importance as a launching pad for the art philosopher to get in and tell you why it's art or why it's good or why it's important.
But if you combine what Richard just said about the spiritual aspect and about the content to the artist with the black cube, I would say that it depends what content is there. That sometimes there's a black cube that has such deep meaning to the artist that you can have a transcendent experience.
I know that, but that means you've got to know something about the artist.
Or you have
Why
to trust
should you
your
have to-
feelings.
why do you have to read a
Sometimes
text to be able to
it-
get it? I mean, part of it is a breaking down a definition of what art is. I mean,
Yeah.
a more traditional person like myself, and it sounds like you, I mean, says visual art is visual. I mean, why do you have to read something? But I guess what you're finding in the art world now is sort of this breaking down of,
Well, you see
of
an
what art is.
installation.
I mean, it is
Right.
philosophy,
You go
it
to
is an agent of social change.
You go to an installation that's, you know, wood here and things just glued to the floor that don't seem to have any meaning to you. They don't connect. They don't mean anything. And yet you go and you read the story about it and it says this is the artist that says this is what about.
Or what's the
this
title?
is what the piece
you
is
know?
about. Or
Will the title help me decipher
Yeah.
what this is supposed
Right.
to be?
Okay, and at some point, don't you wish that you didn't know anything about the artist? I mean, is
Jeff Koons.
Jeff Koons, right? His stuff would be more enjoyable if you didn't know who he was. Andy Warhol, I mean, without his mastery of public relations, Andy certainly never explained what any of that stuff was about. Everybody around him said, "You're a genius. Do you know what this stuff is about?" And he was like, you know, no.
I eat a lot of soup. What can I tell you?
Yeah, right. I'm hungry. But you know, Geldzahler and all the people that gathered around him and said, "This boy's a genius," you know.
You know, a lot of that has to do with curators and art critics.
Sure.
You know, art critics tend to dictate what we should believe in or what we should admire. You know, I don't buy that. I mainly, if I see an artwork that I like, it's as Linda said, it's subjective. You know, you go to Mexico, you go to all these third world countries, and they have beautiful art, and it's right from the heart. They got rhythm, you know, and they're not dictated by art critics or curators.
It comes right from here.
Yeah.
Religious paintings. I mean, one of my favorite tchotchkes at home was a very cheap wood frame, piece of paper, Virgin Mary, the Virgin of Guadalupe, with this glitter paint. You know, the halo was in glitter paint, and the snake at the bottom was in glitter paint. This thing was obviously inexpensive souvenir, and yet whoever sat down and painted this stuff on there wasn't doing it for money. You know, I mean, this thing is really beautiful when you look at it. And if you look at art of primitive peoples, for whom there is no economic transaction at all to us.
That's right. Or no education.
It's only in the context of their position.
It's their way of
within
life.
it's within the community.
Right.
I mean, it has a functional
that's why it has to
purpose within the
integrate with
community.
your life. I mean, when you, I was just telling them, I went to a movie theater last night. I went to see Strictly Ballroom, you know? And I look at the walls in the theater, and I said, God, look at the colors of the blue and green. I said, could you imagine if that's only plain white? I mean, we want to look at it. Thanks to the artists, they paint different colors. And that's what it is. You have to integrate it. You have to have a colorful chair, or you have to have something, you know, you walk around and you see something that artist did, and it says, you know, it has to go with your everyday life. You
It's
know?
amazing,
It
I mean, how in
yeah.
a society there's so many people that are just so unaestheticized. I mean, you go into somebody's house and they have, you know, a chair, a table, nothing on the walls, and it's like, I mean, how can
maybe
they
they've been
live like this, you know? I mean,
de-aestheticized, you know. If they had taste, but it was surgically removed by living in America for 20 years, you know, that if you've lived around enough imitation wood Formica tops, enough wagon wheel furniture,
or what
nobody has wagon wheel furniture here, but I mean, you know what I mean? You can live in an environment, tract housing, you know, that whole Levittown concept where the taste has been removed from your life. You know, you got to go some long way away and see if you can find some taste somewhere. But you might grow up and we see things every day around us. Who made this brown plastic imitation wood radio? Why would they make a radio of wood to begin with? Why would they make it out of plastic that looks like wood? You know, where does this?
We're very confused.
We are obviously really confused. You know, it bugs me. You know, you spend your whole life in a place that could be so beautiful. If people simply open themselves to art, developed an aesthetic sense, they would burn Kmarts all over the world. They would be in flames because the people would simply march down there like Frankenstein's castle with torches and fling them through the windows. No more ugly beige furniture, you know. Every place that had an orange and brown facade. Those school buildings that are brick with the blue panes and the glass rocks through the windows.
There's so much dialogue, both in print and verbally, about the responsibility of the artist to the public and to the community. How often do we talk about the responsibility of the business community to the community that they are profiting from?
That's
you know, and why are there no, or little, actually there are more now, but few aesthetic standards about public places and how those places are laid out and built to accommodate the people who use them. You know, and this is now starting to be a new area of awareness.
For it.
You know,
Probably,
yeah.
as part of their building budget, they agree to put a
1%
sculpture in the
1%
square.
art. I believe in that 1% for public
That's
art.
something that the government helps us by incentivizing doing it. 'Cause
I think they should all have it.
But
It's
see, that's
compulsory.
I think this is what's going to happen. You make it compulsory. God, there's nothing worse than the idea of having art shoved down your throat all the time. But it would be a great.
That happened to you recently?
It would be a great thing. It would be a great thing for business. I mean, there's so many things in this country that have got to happen, that have got to come from businesses.
Art education,
Heart.
public
They've got to,
schools.
I mean, I was thinking of something simpler, like, well, it's a more difficult problem, but the idea of health care. They're not going to be able to go to insurance companies and dictate what they're going to do. They're going to have to get their cooperation. Why don't we get their cooperation the same way and say, look, as long as you're going to mess your profit margin up, why not throw some art into the bargain? Why not beautify a park? Why not buy some
It's
art?
happening.
Yeah.
It's happening, and it always has happened. But what's getting interesting now is art getting more solid in education.
That's the key right there.
And they're starting with younger students and going up through high school.
Definitely.
They're realizing
They
that
need
we
that,
have a
that's
right
true.
side to the brain and that it needs to be
It's not an
stimulated
elective
as
anymore,
well,
right?
so that we just don't keep walking in left circles.
Yeah.
I mean, if you any age at anything,
Right
that's where all
angles.
the budget
In right angles. It is an
at
education
a
problem.
known level.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be the distance between the museum goer and the work on the wall. My kid could do
Right.
that. Well, the kid probably could, but the question is, could the adult do it and understand
Yeah,
it?
that's
probably
true.
not.
Well, you know, that's probably where you get a good aesthetic sense. You know, you take them at school and you show them about
Right.
design and harmony and all these. You
But
don't
it's,
teach them about
but it's an integral,
Picasso and everything.
it's a necessity.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's where
David
human
is a teacher,
being-
art teacher.
Oh, you are?
So he knows these things.
Good.
You know.
And how
important.
receptive are young children? Or what age do you teach at?
I teach high school and I also teach college.
Oh, well, so you don't even know what, like little ones how they react.
They're already there.
I give workshops to little kids.
Little
They love
kids
it.
are already there. They're
I
very
mean, little kids
creative
go
and they're
nuts.
naturally
did a workshop yesterday.
expressing
Yeah, they do
themselves all the
respond.
time.
That's the
Usually
part of a
they're
lot of
abstract things.
home
They're
life
very
before
honest.
Yeah.
they even enter the school system. You know, the first thing you do once the kid is proficient at coloring is you say, you know, here's a piece of paper and a box of crayons, and you tell them to go for it. But then almost as soon as they hit the formal education stage, they are, again, confined back into draw within the lines, color
Right.
inside this thing
But
that's
that's
already
good
there for you.
for guys like you and me who think you've got to be able to draw inside the lines. You know. You
But that's
have to
such
do it
a
all the time.
but that's such a
Why?
but it's such a limitation.
It is. I know.
It's such a limitation.
I know it
and
is.
I deal with students in the college level. And the first time they come into the classroom, they're stuck with the limitation. They draw the lines and then they work within the lines.
Right.
And I have to teach them how to bust out of the lines in order to grow, to become more receptive
But,
to new ideas.
you know, besides the tax incentives, there's other incentives that they're discovering when they do these studies on psychological development, and one is that creative thinking is actually better for the business community.
Oh, yeah.
That if, just like you say about this left circles, you know, you don't want a population of people that only know how to follow directions.
Right.
Because if you need an innovation, you don't have any innovative thinkers in the lot.
What happened?
Because I haven't said anything heretical so far in the whole show, I'll say that this kind of goes with my theory that the more you open your society, like when we made the workplace open to women, that we have people who are more creative, more traditionally right-brained than men coming in, and we find solutions that men would never have found by themselves. And the more we open our business, every facet of our society, to more people, to more types of thinkers, to more types of creativity, the stronger we get, the more power everybody gets. And I really think that is true.
I mean, that all sort of interacts against each other and feeds off each
Absolutely.
other.
And you know, every time you keep somebody out, then you could have had this. This could have been money. I mean, imagine Stephen Hawking, you know, that guy. We're going to build a ramp for this idiot. Look at him out there.
It's like cutting off fingers.
Yeah.
Cutting off fingers.
Yeah, it is.
Taking bits and pieces away from the total organism. And pretty soon you can't walk right.
Exactly. I know. You'd be
can't
walking
walk.
in left, right angles.
And there's
can you do
many.
that?
I walk in right angles. It's right angles. I'm on the other side of the fence.
So you teach college students art, huh?
High school
What a
students.
cake job that must be.
High school college.
A cake job.
Yeah, I mean,
And I have my frosting. And I have my frosting every night.
eat it too. I mean.
Oh, it's terrific. I bake it. I eat it. And then I do the dishes after.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
geez,
wonderful.
that really must be so. Where did you go to school?
Undergraduate at Murray State University, then I studied with Gregory Gillespie for about 1.5 years, and then my master's at University of Massachusetts Amherst.
You were under
Gillespie, that name's
Gillespie?
familiar.
Yeah,
real
he is a
famous
portrait.
realist-
I mean,
realist
yeah,
painter.
that's all
Sort of
this
semi-surrealist too, though.
realist paint.
Oh.
He actually had a
Where's he
piece over
from?
at the Arlington Art
Great.
Center for
Really?
a while.
Is he from here? or-
No, he lives up in Amherst, Massachusetts.
Oh.
Does he
Belcher
teach at
Town.
Amherst?
No, he just, I just worked with him as an apprentice. Went to his studio.
the best.
Now,
way.
see, that's one of the problems.
Yeah.
Nobody apprentices. I went to see a show a couple weeks ago, and the paintings were already falling apart. They were new, and nobody knew about the you actually have to
The
do things to
technique.
keep your paint from falling apart. You know, it'll fall right up the picture.
There
And,
are problems.
That's happening to Schnabel and his plate paintings.
Let's
Really?
hope.
Well, it's never limited
Well,
to
artists
the
need to pay
Thai
attention.
temples, you know.
It's
Thai
just not, you
temples.
can't have
Really?
that creative freedom to do whatever you want. I mean, you have to realize that there are things that
didn't you just 5 minutes ago tell me?
technical.
You
Well,
told
I
me
am
do whatever
painting
you
with
want.
fish, but you know, in different mediums that are non-traditional art mediums. But I'm trying to treat them in such a way that they will be around for a long time by sealing the fish in an acrylic medium and then painting over it. So I am taking precautions
And there are
So you're-
limitations of time, heat, gravity. I mean, you know, those are realistic things that you can't get
when
past.
when you're teaching people to break through the boundaries and get outside the line and all that stuff, you also have to teach about the craft of making something good, and you teach them to be critical enough to look at the thing you've just done and say, "Boy, this stinks. Let me just wipe it out." Or do you do that? I mean, do you want to instill in somebody a self-critical sense to where I suck. I should change to business or English or something.
Well, not to discourage them.
Never do that.
Not demoralize
You'd be
them.
out of a job, obviously. I mean, is there obviously there's a self-interest in not having anybody leave the curriculum, even if you think they stink, because the more people you tell them, you're never going to be an artist, son.
Well, it's not a quota.
Well, sometimes
That's
it's
not my
work.
choice.
Some
You should
people
never
think
tell
it's
it to a girl
so
like
easy
that. I
to
think
make
you're gonna be a
art, but
brilliant
it's
artist.
not really that
Come
easy.
see me in the
You know, you have to work through that part where some people think it's just so easy. They just draw this. But there's blocks that sometimes the artist really has to keep pushing to figure out how to solve this problem they've set up for themselves visually. So it's
I
not
think
that easy.
most people that are doing it have some ideas as to
Well, if you
But I mean-
some
That's a problem with
self-critical
human nature.
judgments. Well, there's no way I'm going to
Yeah.
cut it. And if they think that if they delude themselves into thinking they're great, then they might not be that good initially, but they've got the stamina and the drive to
You know, there's a
push
lot of people
forward.
that are not very good who are incredibly famous.
But
I'm very good
if you're
marketers.
not sure about some of these solutions, or if you think you know them all, or if you just want to share, you should go to the open studio and come in and meet the
That's right.
artists.
And
Share your
criticize.
ideas with them, criticize their work.
Or come on Slumber Party.
Right.
We still got some room.
and continue the conversation. So we'd like to thank you all very much for
Yes,
coming
yes,
and
awesome.
playing
Thank
with
you for
us
having
today.
us. Yeah.
And
thanks.
best of
It's
luck to you
great.
with all your
thanks.
exhibitions
Thank
and
you.
your exhibitionism and
Your fish painting.
what's going on here. Once again.
You know, you've been
Perfect host to host.
I know. You really got into
that it
them
then, I guess?
at the beginning.
Say something for the camera, guys.
Yeah, well, that's right. Steve and Mike both are gobbling them up.